Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Stack and Dubs. I'm your host, Chris Chin. Welcome back to Warriors season. Yes, Steph Curry and the boys hit the hardwood for preseason game one. Very, very nice to see everyone out running around. Just all these lineups and everything on paper in the off season. And as of a couple weeks, not even a couple weeks ago, we only had 9 players on roster. But it is just good to see an actual product on the floor. Lot to unpack in this, just mainly from the first half, and I just kind of want to look at lineup combinations. I want to look at Al Horford and his debut for the Warriors. I want to look at Moses Moody and his very good 2025 debut, and just kind of make a little bit of some light predictions and just some optimism for a very successful game one. Before we get into that, hook me up, guys. Let me get a little like, a follow, a subscribe. Let's get this channel pumping and getting going into the season so you don't miss any Warriors content as the season begins. All right, let's start at the beginning with the starting lineup, which I gotta say, I was expecting Al Horford to start, but I'm not altogether that surprised that Kerr went back to what he knew worked with the lineup of Steph at the one, Pods at the two, Moses Moody at the three, essentially being your point of attack defender with that group, Jimmy Butler at the four, and Draymond at the five. A few reasons here, and I think the first being that if this is your starting lineup for the season, which it kind of seems is the plan, you're going to have to figure out how to pace your Al Horford minutes. We see how valuable he is and how many combinations he unlocks, especially when you start getting to that second group and third group, and you have some more one-way players in that lineup that Al Horford essentially brings together in lineups. So why not eat a few minutes at the beginning of the games and just go small with Dre at the five with a lineup that took you, basically the entire season last year to figure out that it works and went on a huge run in those last 30 or so games with Jimmy Butler. So go back to this five and just kind of reconnect them and get off to a decent start. You're not going to be playing Draymond nearly as many minutes at the five this year, so it's okay to log him a few minutes here and essentially save some of the lineup combinations that you're going to be using with Al Horford with some of those second unit guys. So I understand the thinking there. Also, it helps ease Steph in, like we know he likes to do in the beginning of games, and not have to be the primary play initiator, the engine to the offense by starting him, next to essentially Pajemski here with Dre, with Jimmy. You have three other guys that can handle the ball, initiate plays, and essentially let Steph do what he does best and just run off ball, kind of create some chaos and get everyone else involved and not ask Steph to basically have to attack the hoop and do all the heavy lifting early in the game. So I think this lineup makes sense just to kind of ease Steph in. And then lastly, and what Steve Kerr's main objective with going with this lineup is letting Moses Moody just attack as a point of attack perimeter defender. A little overzealous in this one, picked up 3 fouls and I think like the first 3 minutes, but you can see the impact, had a couple of deflections, just essentially attacked as a defender, where Moses Moody has really emerged as a true two-way player if he's going to continue playing perimeter defense like he is. And yeah, everything about Moses Moody in this one was great. You can see when he's engaged on defense, got him rolling, got him energetic, and it translated on the offensive side where he ended up dropping like 19 points. He was 5 of 7 from three. Really liked the release. It looked a little quicker, kind of avoided that little dip to his shot that he used to have, and maybe it's something he's been working on in the off season. Looked a little more fluid, confident, quick, small sample size, but I have hopes for Moody, who has always had a very nice aesthetic looking shot and been a 37-ish% three-point shooter. Hey, bump that maybe closer to 39, 40%, especially with these kind of lineups where you're going to be getting all that you can handle, especially from the corners. Get that up closer to 40%, and now we're cooking. That's another couple of points per game in the aggregate and in terms of net rating. So you saw what the result was. Moses Moody, I think it was like a plus 21 in the game, and that's all you can ask for. And I would think that Steve Kerr is going to roll out this lineup again for the time being. Now, after the starters, you're looking at Al Horford, first man off the bench. And from there, as the subs come in, and you're going to see that almost every lineup makes sense now. Now that you have a two-way center, a two-way big, you can slide to power forward, does everything well from shot blocking to playing perimeter defense and being able to be switchable or even in drop coverage, can play in a zone defense, offensively can get the ball out ahead, can pass, quick release, can one of the best screen setters in the league. Everything about Horford is just a Warriors dream because of the veteran IQ that he plays with. Pat Spencer said it after the game, and Joe Lake, plug your ears, but essentially, to paraphrase Pat Spencer, he just harped on how important it is just to have high IQ players. And so much of the league now is just drafting length and athleticism, aka James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga. But what you really need is just high IQ players like Al Horford. When you have these type of players, everything is just more connected. The ball moves faster than the player, right? If you know where you're going to go with the ball, you know where you're going to anticipate on defense. Doesn't matter if you're 39 years old and not the most athletic guy, you're going to be at the spot faster than like a Jonathan Kuminga, right? There's no reason that Kuminga should be rotating slower or be in not in a good position as Al Horford because of his speed and lateral quickness. But it's just that savvy veteran IQ that and anticipation that Horford is just so good on both sides of the ball. And he essentially, you saw he unlocks every lineup that he's in. Eventually, when Melton comes back, he does the same thing for you with lineups that as a essentially a two-way guard. So you're looking at, hey, we have this that starting lineup that worked for us last year, but now every bench unit you're going to add a two-way big to all the lineups last year that didn't work for that reason. You're eventually going to add Melton as another two-way guard, two-way, almost like a wing sometimes, depending how we use him. Now these lineups all seem to make sense in terms of spacing and then defensive switchability, and you just don't have as many holes in those lineups. So I'm loving it. Horford, again, first sub, had a steal, had 3 blocks. I think I saw that was like the most blocks in a half that any Warriors player has had in at least a year, maybe multiple years. Whatever the case, doesn't really matter, but you just see how impactful he is on that back line of defense. Led the team in plus minus, I believe. And I'm just going to extrapolate that and make the bold prediction that Al Horford is going to lead the Warriors in plus minus this season. I know that's a Pajemski stat, but I mean, for every reason I just mentioned, Horford makes sense at every lineup, and I think he's going to be a plus minus monster in every lineup he's in. In terms of just pacing his minutes, again, I could see him coming off the bench and finishing that first quarter like he did tonight. I think he's going to finish the halves. I think he's going to, again, come off the bench in that third quarter and essentially just finish every quarter for little 6-minute spurts. Might have to find ways to play him more than that 24, 25 minutes at times. I think ideally the Warriors would like to keep him below 25 minutes until kind of closer to the playoff time just to preserve him. He won't be playing on back-to-backs. But like we're saying, if you start with that small lineup, which works, then you can use that for, call that 10 to 12 minutes a game. Then you have about 25 Horford minutes. That's 37-ish minutes of a 48-minute game where you have a very good lineup on the floor that just kind of makes sense and doesn't have any holes at center or your big spots. And then on top of that, you have multiple other lineups to kind of fill in that last 10, 11 minutes of the game. So I'm very optimistic about the lineups, guys. I don't know if you guys are kind of seeing the same thing, but it seemed to make sense. And I'm very, very happy that we have some true depth and true two-way players. And it all starts with Al Horford. I know I did a whole episode last week on the Warriors closing five, and the premise was being that, hey, all your best lineups tend to be with Draymond at the five. It's just always been what the Warriors have done dating back to 2016. I might be going back on that because there's a very good chance that the Al Horford lineups with Dre at the four are just the best lineups that the Warriors have, and you're going to have to close with that. It's going to be matchup dependent sometimes, and if you're chasing points, you might have to go small and just get out and run. Which, by the way, Horford could, for 39 years old and a big, he we got out and ran with him on the court, and it seemed to be fine. But my point being that end of game, you might just have to go with Horford, Draymond, Jimmy, Steph, and then any of your shooting guards, whether it's Pods, whether it's Melton when he's back. If you need the shooting, you can go Buddy because you have great defense on the back line there. You can put Buddy in there and just have him running off screens like Steph is. And you can even play Moody there because, he's more of a three than he is a two. But if you really just want a point of attack defender with that lineup and just someone to space the floor, Moody might just play himself into that best 3-and-D role that the Warriors have. Kuminga, also a thought, and we're just going to put a pin in that for now because I don't see him with that closing lineup if Horford's in, but we'll get to that at a later time. Saw a with that essentially that lineup, they played a lot of the Jimmy, Dre, and Horford minutes together just to get them as much time last night as you could. And with those lineups, you see that the offensive intentionality is you're going to be playing through Jimmy in the post a bunch, and then you're spacing around him with essentially four out, and let Jimmy kind of work with space inside, and then obviously looking for Steph or a shooter around that. Aside from that, you saw a couple instances with Steph and Dre in the pick and roll. And again, it's just a little bit more room to operate, more passers, more playmakers off of that. So that'll obviously be what the Warriors' bread and butter is going to be with those lineups is just Jimmy through the post, Steph and Dre through the pick and roll. And I'm sure you'll see a split cut or two. But love just it's going to be a very efficient offense with those five on the floor, or sorry, those four on the floor. Also, so on defense, you saw a 1-3-1 zone look a couple times with Dre being at the bottom of that, just being able to kind of free and run the baseline. You have Horford just manning the middle of that key, and then you have everyone else kind of just running around that zone. A lot of high IQ defenders there. Steph, a very high IQ defender. And yeah, I mean, I think when you going to give that zone look, which you're seeing a lot more in the NBA these days, that is also a very nice weapon to be able to go in and out of man, zone, drop coverage, switch everything. A lot you can do now that you have this two-way big. Even at the end of the first quarter, once you're kind of looking at the bench unit, Warriors finished or ran significant minutes towards the end of that first quarter when Steph, Dre, Jimmy all off the floor. If that's the look, here's what the lineup looked like. It was Horford at center with Kuminga. You paired Buddy and GP, which we know that Kerr loves to do. So you got those two on the floor together. And then you had Pat Spencer out there, but I looked at any Pat Spencer minutes as what Melton's minutes are eventually going to be as that third guard. So again, Horford, JK, Buddy, GP, and Melton. Interesting lineup there. Gives you some spacing, gives you good enough D to cover up Buddy on that side, and you have essentially three guys who can be good attack defenders and Kuminga, GP, and Melton doesn't have a ton of playmaking in it. I mean, you're really looking at Melton to create there, or you're just kind of isolating Kuminga and you're surrounding him with just enough spacing. So we'll see how that works. I've always thought that GP and Kuminga is kind of a clunky fit because they're essentially both not spacing power forward type guys. But I can see the logic there. So we'll kind of see how that lineup emerges. But I was interested to see that. Opened the second quarter with Steph, Kuminga, Pods, Jimmy, and Dre. That's the lineup if you're going to try with Kuminga, Butler, Dre. I could see that being the optimal lineup. That would work there with Steph and Pods. I guess you could throw Buddy in there as well, just for a little bit extra spacing. But yeah, now you're kind of stuck running all your offense through Steph and Jimmy again. To Kuminga. Pretty good. I liked what I saw out of Kuminga. Seems bought in, seemed to keep the ball moving, quick decisions. In his first shift or so, 2 assists, could have been three if it wasn't a missed layup by, I think it was Draymond. Had a nice weak side defensive rotational block. Very good block there, which I've already said I really want to see out of him. Had a couple rebounds, another tip out for like a third rebound. You could have counted it. Ultimately finished with 6 rebounds, good number. 4 assists, great number. That block. And then he went 1 of 2 from three. Give me those numbers. I really don't care how much you're scoring because we know the scoring will be there. We know he's going to be an easy 12 points, probably an easy averaging 15 points, and anything else you get more than that is truly a breakout. I think we can all agree that we're less worried about JK scoring as all the other peripherals that I just talked about and seem to be alert on defense, moved well. When he's in, I just watch Kuminga the whole time, and especially on defense, and didn't really find any mistakes from him. Offensively, again, quick decision maker and kept the ball moving and had a few just good cuts, whether he got the ball or not. So liked everything I saw from him. If that's the evolution we're going to see, that's the icing on the cake to this team. I think this team is going to be they're projected for 46 and a half wins. I think you're really looking at like a 48, 50 win team as is, just because of how they finished last year, just because of the additions they made. And that's just assuming Kaminga is what he was last year. If you can either get him bought into that role and truly become another almost two-way player to add to these lineups, with the capability of scoring 30 points on any given night and just being a matchup nightmare given the matchup, or he's your means to a better piece through trade, which we will talk about a later time. Now you're talking about, hey, this team could win somewhere closer in the mid 50s and they can play itself into a top three seed in the West and a team that is not going to want to be faced in the playoffs. So I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. I know it's just basically one half of basketball, but it is fun to have something to look at, observe, analyze, overanalyze. But fun stuff. And lastly, Steph Curry just looked like Steph Curry, just shot well, moved well, comfortable. Ultimately, that's what matters the most is, hey, is Steph still Steph? And seems to be he is still Steph. All right. That's a lot for one half, but a lot of optimism coming out of here. Hope you guys are ready for the next game. I think we got playing Wednesday, Portland. I don't know, doesn't really matter. But if you see a few more minutes and looking forward to a few more combinations in that one. All right. Don't forget, hit me with a subscribe, guys. Don't miss anything on Stack and Dubs. Until next time, I've been Chris Chin. Peace, love, and Stack and Dubs.